This podcast, The Good, the Bad and the Vagina, is brought to you by me, Tess Lovely, a retired midwife, birth keeper, mother and sovereign woman. The views shared are my own and those of my guests. If something doesn't resonate, release it. It's not meant to upset or offend. If you feel discomfort, please seek support for your own healing. If you don't like what you hear, don't listen. This space honours truth, freedom and expression, protected under the rights to free speech. Welcome to The Good, the Bad and the Vagina. Let's get started. Hello, Amy and Kel, or as otherwise referred to, Carl. So thank you so much for coming on to The Good, the Bad and the Vagina. Obviously, Amy, I know you through networking, which is amazing. And we'll come through all of that in a little while. But Kel, I've never met you. You are Amy's sister. I don't even know if you're the elder or the younger sister. I didn't want to speculate. I started this podcast. I'm in the very early stages of it. I met Amy through networking, through business, and Amy took quite a shine to me because my introduction handle in business networking is, "Hey, I'm Tess. I do antenatal classes and I'm a virgin at business, but an expert in vaginas." Amy took quite a shine to that and has befriended me since. And then I told her I was doing these podcasts and I said, "Would you like to come on one?" And she was, "Yes." And I was so very excited. So welcome to you both. I would like you both to introduce yourselves, say a little bit about who you are, what you're, where you're at in your life. And then we'll start revealing some birth journeys, hopefully, as this is the good, the bad and the vagina. I'm not sure which one of you girls would like to go first, but over to you. Welcome.
Oldest first.
You let that one slip in there.
Oldest first, yeah.
So I'm Amy. I've got two children. So I've got a 14-year-old and a 5-year-old. So I had Caden, who's my eldest. I had him quite young. So I was 17 at the time. And then, I had Zach a bit older along the way. And then in my spare time, I'm an accountant.
And she loves her numbers. And Kel?
So I'm Kellyanne, mother to one. In my spare time, I like to make coffee. And I'm a wife.
Yeah, I'm a wife. Just.
I don't know if you've listened to Christelle's podcast. I only released it yesterday and she was quite young. So that's quite an interesting platform to sort of start from because she was 21 when she had her little girl. And she found that sometimes on her journey, she found health professionals quite patronising and a little condescending towards her because of her age. So it's interesting that you were, how old were you when you had your eldest?
17.
17. And how old were you when you had the next one?
Got work backwards. I think I was 27.
27.
No, 27. Yeah, 26.
Did you notice the difference between the way you were treated with those?
Yeah, I guess so. I think when I had Caden, I was obviously naive, young. So yeah, it was very different. And then having Zach was COVID times. So he was born in March, like the 5th of March, and then COVID hit straight after that. So I felt like there was just no after support at all with Zach, really. And I was just left to fend for myself. And even though I've already done it before with Caden, it's still new, it's still different, had a massive age gap. And trying to navigate life that way was very strange.
I can imagine, because from a health professional point of view, we would have looked at your facts and figures, as in you'd already had a baby.
Yeah.
Not really considering that baby may have been 10 years previously and that you were only 17 when you had it. But because you'd had a baby, especially during the lockdown process and everything was very new, it would have made a job a lot easier for them to go, "We don't need to see her. She's had a baby. She'll be all right." So it must have been quite isolating for you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was hard because I didn't have, like, I had family, but they was just on the phone. I couldn't just pop and see mum and get support or anything. I had Josh around, which is my husband. So luckily he was furloughed. So we kind of had a lot of time together. But it was his first child. So Caden was from a different relationship. This was all new to Josh as well. And he didn't know what was going on. So I guess as a dad, he probably felt a bit kind of just left to it.
Yeah, really difficult. So when you became pregnant at 17, talk me through how that must have felt for you, like telling your parents that you were pregnant, going along in a system of pregnancy. Was you quite confident about it? Because 17, you can be one way or the other, can't you? You can be either very shy and reserved or step right into it and not give a shit, basically, what people...
I'm one of 6 and I'm the eldest. So I've always been around children. So in terms of being nervous or anything about being a mum, I was fine because I'd helped bring up my brothers and kind of in a way helped bring up Cal as well. Taking it right back, I found out I was pregnant on the 1st of April and I went to the doctors. I think I went with you, didn't I? You come with me. She did the little dip thing and then she told me I was pregnant. And straight away, she said, if you'd like to come back and arrange an abortion. That was her first reaction, was not look at the support, here's your options. It was just straight away, we can book you another appointment for an abortion. And I knew then, I was like, I'm not gonna have an abortion. I went home and told mum and she thought I was joking. She thought it was an April Fool's prank. And then it wasn't until I started crying and I was like, no, mum, I'm pregnant, that she kind of was like, oh gosh, you are. And then she sat down with me and she was great. And she was like, whatever you want to do, I'll support you. I'll be here for you. I had the support from mum, which was good. And then 2 weeks later, I actually had a miscarriage and I went to the hospital because I didn't know what was going on. I just started bleeding and I was, mum, I'm bleeding. What is it? What do I do? So she sent me to hospital and told me to go to the A&E. So I went there and I was put in this room and I remember being put in this room and there were all these like baby toys in there because it was in the children's bit. So they put me in this little side room and I didn't have a clue what was going on. And they came back and they says, oh yeah, we've looked at your bloods because they had to take bloods from me. So we looked at your bloods and your HCG. They said that my levels were slightly lower. So they said, we believe you are having a miscarriage, and just sent me home with some pain relief. And then I think I went through all of that. It was very obvious that I had the miscarriage. And about a week or so later, I had a phone call from the doctors because I had to go for a second blood test to check that the levels had actually dropped down. And then I had a call back from the doctors and they're like, oh, congratulations, you're pregnant. And I was like, no, I'm not. I've had a miscarriage already. And it was so crazy. I did feel like a child at that point where nobody really told me what was going on and I was confused and it was a bit mental. And then I found out in June that I was pregnant again. And then this is when I had Caden.
Quite a conscious decision then to have a baby at 17. If you had experienced a miscarriage, you would have thought, actually, I'm obviously quite fertile. Maybe I ought to take other methods of trying to prevent a pregnancy. So it must have been quite a conscious decision for you to be wanting to have a baby then.
I think after having the miscarriage, I kind of had my head, the idea of I was going to be a mum, and I liked that. So then I had the discussion and we said that we'll try again, and didn't realise just quite how fertile I was, to be honest.
When you had your pregnancy and you obviously had quite a healthy pregnancy, is there anything along on that journey that you felt was really useful for you and other stuff that you thought, why are you even telling me this?
Wouldn't say it was useful. It happened both with Caden and with Zach. I had to go for scans because I was quite big when I had Caden and I'm only like small frames, and to have this massive bump, and they was telling me that Caden was going to be too big to fit out of me, and there was quite a lot of scary things that were being told. So the whole time I thought, how am I going to have this baby? How are they going to get it out of me? It's going to be stuck there forever because they was saying all these things and how he was too big and had to keep going back for scans. I think it was quite nerve-wracking for that.
How big was he?
6'15". He was not big at all.
Do you know what? One of the things that they really, really miss on Small Women is that, especially if your trunk is quite short, is there's nowhere for this baby to hide. The only place it can grow is out. And so quite often small girls or women will have it'll look a sizable pregnancy just because that's the only place that it can grow is outwards. That's what happened with you.
And I think I had a lot of water because
Okay.
they, when I was in labour, they had to burst my waters for me. And I just remember it was never ending. It was like it just flooded the room. There was so much water. And I was like, is this normal? And she was like, well, you do have a lot of water. You was very big. And I was like, okay. But then at the time, I was still expecting this massive baby to come out. So I wasn't expecting a little 6'15" Caden.
Did they scan you because of your size in your pregnancy?
So I'm trying to think back. I did have a few scans. I remember being taken into a side room when they tried to tell me that I was measuring too big. I didn't have to go for any of the diabetes stuff with Caden. I did with Zach. They said that I was too big with Zach as well. And then I had to have the glucose test, which that's a whole different story I'll tell you in a bit.
So when you then go into labour, did you go into labour yourself or did you have your labour induced?
I went into labour naturally with Caden. This is where I feel like, looking back on it now, because I never really thought anything of it, because at the time you're just going through everything and you think it's normal. And it wasn't until I was talking to Leah in the office about it the other day, and I was like, they actually treated me like a child. I wasn't treated like a mother or like a new parent to be. I was treated like a child, I think. So labour started on Valentine's Day, and it was like the evening of Valentine's Day, and it was my back, and I was in so much pain with my back. And I remember I was walking around, and we called up the hospital, the midwife team, and they said, oh, it's probably Braxton Hicks. You'll get these around this stage. And I was like, right, okay. Never had a baby before, so I believed everything they said. They said, just take some tablets, have a bath, you'll be fine. And I didn't sleep the whole of that night. And I remember in the morning, I was on the sofa. I think I was bent over one eye, and
Yeah.
you was...
I was trying to get ready for school and she was like, rub my back, I've got to go to school. I'm going to be late.
It was just my back, absolute agony. Also, the night before, I think they came out and they says, no, you're not dilated, you're not having a baby, it's just Braxton Hicks. Then the next morning, they came out again, no, you're fine. And I was like, right, okay. And then I was in so much pain, I couldn't deal with it. So my partner at the time, his mum, called the hospital and was like, listen, I'm bringing her down. She's suffering with pain. She can't handle it. They were like, fine, we'll see her. And when I went in and I was on the monitor, I was contracted, but just wasn't dilating. I was having the contraction, so I was, I guess, in a labour. I mean, you'd understand it all a lot more than I did. But it turned out that the reason I was in so much pain was because he was back to back, but nobody have explained any of that stuff to me. I'm just thinking it was awful. And I was exhausted from having no sleep. I just didn't feel like I was listened to. I think they were just like, no, you're not in labour. It's Braxton Hicks. You don't know what you're doing. You're a child, kind of thing. And just told me to get on with it.
That really hurts my heart to hear that, because when a woman presents in labour with a really bad backache, it's very evident straight away that that's because the baby's back is on your back. And there's so much that they can do, support-wise, advice-wise, to kind of encourage, to help you help you with your coping, but also helped on the baby. So adapting different positions, doing breathing techniques so that you relax. Because when you're young and not when just when you're young, but when you're scared and you're vulnerable and you're frightened, you tend to tense. And then when you tense, you're working against your body rather than working with your body. You're feeling sort of patronized or treated like a child, and you're not feeling loved and nurtured, you're not able to sort of surrender into this process. So it's not surprising that you had like a full night and then another full day and not getting anywhere. The contractions that you were having was your body doing a really great job trying to get the baby in a better position. But if you're not told that, you think,
Yeah.
why am I getting all of this pain and no gain? Where's my
Yeah.
baby? Why isn't my cervix 10 centimetres? I know that's my target, because most people know that's the target that they've got to get to have
Yeah.
a baby. So it's really sad to hear that that was your sort of first experience into the service of becoming a mum,
Yeah.
really sad.
It was crazy. And then I think I got to, it was probably about 6 o'clock in the evening. So this was, yeah, I'd had at least a full 24 hours of all this pain. And in the end, I was like, just give me an epidural. And they came in, and the guy that did it, he put it in wrong 3 times. And I remember them saying, they got somebody else in. So they actually got a woman in. And we always joke about it now with mum. And I'm like, well, they should have got a woman to do it in the first place and it would have been done right the first time. But yeah, so he put it in, wrong 3 times. I think mum had disappeared in the bathroom and she was crying in the bathroom because she couldn't handle it. And I thought, you can't handle it. I'm the one having a baby here. And then after having the epidural, I kind of just relaxed. And I was just in a zen then. I was able to kind of have a bit of a nap. And then, I woke up and I think I had him at 2, just either 2 or half 2. I think it
Two
was
exactly.
was it 2 exactly? So 1:30 I started pushing, half an hour of pushing and he was out.
Amazing. Well, he wasn't very big, was he?
No. And he came out as well, such a pain. He came out with his hand by his face. So he had a little mark on his wrist and I tore because, why wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, part of that tearing, and I'm sure this hasn't even been explained to you, however many years later, part of that tearing would have been because of having an epidural, because of kind of you become a bit sort of a bit more waterlogged, a bit more restricted in your movements and things like that. Part of it would have been because of his little hand as well. I always say to women, if you draw on a balloon, so if you've got a blown up balloon and then you draw on it and then you watch it shrink down, if you watch how deeper the writing becomes or the drawing becomes, that's a bit like what happens sort of in and around your vagina. When everything is stretched, it's really thin like a balloon. And then as the air goes out of that balloon, you can see how much deeper. So it might look like a little graze at this point, but once everything's sort of shrunk down, it's a little bit deeper. So it's not uncommon to tear. It just makes you feel uncomfortable and like you think the dignity's gone, and it carries on going. Handed this beautiful baby, and actually that's all you want to have some time with, and then somebody's still rummaging around in places that you really wish they weren't.
Yeah. You can't, luckily, because you've got the baby there, you don't really think about everything else that goes on afterwards. I mean, it wasn't really until after when I had Zach, and Josh was very interested in the placenta. And I mean, he was having a science lesson with the midwife. But when I had Caden, I didn't know about any of that stuff. I was just so like, oh, I got this baby. So I didn't even notice it.
Incredible. That's amazing. It's quite interesting seeing the differences between being in a labour ward at 17 and then being in a labour ward at 27.
Yeah.
The kind of the perception and the memory of the things. So you then went on. You obviously had 10 years with this wonderful child, learning on how to be a mum. Baptism by fire, I'm sure a lot of that was. And then decided that you were in a more stable place to then have another baby. And you decide, do you want to talk her through all of that process? And then we'll come on to Kel.
So with Zach, where do I start? Zach has just been entertaining from the beginning. Yeah, he's a barrel of fun. So he I was constantly in and out of hospital, I feel like, because of his movements. So he was either very moving a lot, or then he would go completely silent. But I think I was so nervous, and I don't even know why. I was just really nervous with Zach that something was going to go wrong, because I felt like, when you feel like everything falls into place and it's like, it's too good to be true, there's waiting for something to happen. So yeah, I was constantly in and out, being monitored because he wasn't moving. And then I had to go for the diabetes thing. Is it the diabetes? That is
Yeah.
what it is, isn't it?
Oh.
Yeah. And I remember the first one. So I had to have 2 of those glucose tests. And the first one was just, if I don't eat or drink, I get really shaky and a bit lightheaded. I don't know why. I think when I was younger, I was like, they said I was borderline diabetic, if that's even a thing. I always get a bit shaky. So I remember going for the test, and I was on my own. So I went on my own and I was like, oh, it's fine. I know what I'm doing here. It's easy. I took my laptop with me and I was working away at the same time as well. And then they sent me from one end, because in Torbay, you've got the maternities over that end, and then you have to go all the way to the opposite end of the hospital to get your bloods taken, which I think is crazy when you've got a pregnant lady that's not eaten all day, and she's, especially with me, I was feeling faint. So I remember walking along on my own, holding onto the edge of the railing, going through the corridor, and I was quite big at this time because I obviously, again, was really showing that I was pregnant. And I think one woman stopped and she thought I was in labour, and she's like, are you okay? Do you need to go this way? And I was like, no, I'm going to get my bloods done. But I was clinging to the wall and I just about made it. And then the second time, I actually took my mum with me because I was like, I didn't feel good, mum, and I need somebody to go with me next time. And they ended up doing my bloods on the ward because I did go faint after having that one done, and nothing was ever done about. I was never actually diabetic or any of that stuff, so I never had to do anything. I just got put through the trauma of these 2 glucose tests
For no reason.
for no reason, really. I mean, I guess there is reason. They need to check and make sure and be safe. But in looking back on it, I was like, I didn't need that.
Was you ever given any sort of dietary advice on your pregnancy?
No.
Because one of the things that everybody's body metabolism is different, as we know, and some people have a speedier body metabolism than others. So some people are well able to eat whatever they like and not put on any weight at all, and other people can walk past a donut and put on 4 pounds by the time they've got to the door. And quite often people like yourself, that I get the impression that you're quite a grazer, that you kind of need to have food quite regularly.
Yeah.
That's the impression that I get listening to the small snippet about what you're saying about the blood test. So people like yourself actually just need almost like a constant level of a maintenance level of substance just to keep them on a normal keel. That doesn't mean that they're pre-diabetic or anything. It means that actually they burn up what they've got pretty quick.
Yeah.
So they can kind of eat quite a bit. The biggest, most important thing for that is the hydration, actually, keeping well hydrated. But I don't suppose that was even really discussed in your pregnancy.
No, that's never been discussed. I mean, it makes sense because I'm really bad at not drinking enough. So I guess if I drank more, I probably would feel better.
There you
Instead,
go.
I'd just grab a little chocolate or something. I'm like, oh, I need it, especially in the office. God, I snack so much.
Yeah, although I have been in your office and I have noticed that you do have great big pink water bottles there now.
Yes. We do.
So that's, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, because I'm a water snob, so I can't just have tap water. It's got to be bottled or, yeah, posh water.
Excellent. I love a water snob. Mind you, I don't think I would want to be drinking some of the water that's coming through the taps at the moment.
No.
So you had both of those tests. They were absolutely fine. You received no dietary advice. Do you believe that you, being that bit older and being a second-time mum, that you were spoken to differently, treated differently, able to navigate the system more confidently or anything like that?
No, I'm not really. I didn't really notice anything different. I kind of, because obviously when you're in the moment, you think everything is normal and you don't think that it should be any different way. I think it's only been since having the boys and looking back and speaking to other people that I'm like, nobody ever said those things to me, or that wasn't right. I guess in a way you feel a bit neglected. Like you go to an appointment, they do what they have to do, and then that's it. Like, see you later, you're forgotten about, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing, and you're left to fend for yourself. Whereas I know like being in accounts is completely different, but we're always thinking about the clients. Even just something like somebody else might have a conversation about something, and then we're thinking, oh, that might benefit so and so. And I know there's so, the NHS is super stretched, but you just always feel neglected.
Yeah, I think when you become pregnant, you become consumed by a pregnancy, don't you? I mean, I've had 5, as you know, and each one of those, everything I ate, everything I drank, everything, everywhere I looked, everything I breathed, everything I heard, everything I felt was pregnancy related, one way or another. It
Yeah.
consumes you. And all you want is that same acknowledgement and recognition from somebody who's a professional in it. And I really feel as a midwife, strived really hard to help people feel that seeing them as this beautiful, wonderful, pregnantly amazing person in front of me. I used to keep a bit of humour in there as well. I used to I thought I was quite funny. Not everybody would have agreed with me. But I do feel that it's become a bit of a machine in terms of the care. So long as the boxes are ticked, then that's all that matters. The first time you're seen by a midwife now is at 16 weeks. And that shocks me. Because when you're pregnant, you want to see a midwife at 8 weeks. You want to go and see a midwife and tell her, I'm pregnant. And you want her to go, oh my God, that's amazing. Not get a phone call.
You don't have any, it doesn't feel real, does it? And you can't get excited, and then you hear all of these bad things, and then you think the worst because you haven't got somebody there to give you the positive and be like, congratulations, you're pregnant, like, you're going to be a mom.
Yeah. And I think as well, because now a lot of women try and hold back telling people they're pregnant until they've had their 12-week scan, there's this massive void of nothingness until you can then have your scan. So you get a telephone booking at 8 weeks, between 8 and 10 weeks, and then you get your scan. And then you don't actually see a midwife until you're 16 weeks. That blows my head away. I can't see how that is a level of care that's acceptable for women. I feel women deserve so much more. I really do. I feel that as a human, us women, we produce a whole organ, a whole new organ, okay? We get 2 seeds, a sperm and an egg, that are not visible to the human eye, that mate inside of us, and then they produce a whole human. Like, that blows my head away.
Yeah.
And then we don't get to see a midwife until we're 16 weeks. What the fuck is that all about?
I mean, we should be walking around and people should be like popping banners and being like, you're amazing. Like, look at what
Yeah.
you've done.
Yes, absolutely, they should be.
With banners. You go, girl.
I'm not just fat, I'm pregnant.
No, I am fat and I am pregnant and I'm proud.
Yeah.
When I was pregnant with my last son, I was so massive, honestly. I'd lost 2 stone because I was so sick, but my lump was absolutely humongous. He weighed 11 pounds when he was born.
Ooh.
And I looked like I was disappearing behind this big lump that was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But I was so proud of it. I was like, look at this. Look what I've done. Everybody be like rolling their eyes, going, there she goes again. That one. Going on about a bloody miracle.
I do love being pregnant.
Yeah,
would
it
do.
is. It is a phenomenal thing. When you had Zach in, did you have him in the hospital?
Yeah, so I was induced,
Okay.
and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. It was awful.
It was horrible.
Okay. Do you want to talk through that?
Well, so because of the slow movements or the lack of movements, they said to me in the end, I think I was just before I was 40 weeks,
39 weeks.
so 39, they was like, we're just going to induce you. So I was booked in to be induced and went into the hospital. And again, it's a case of you just in the hospital, you don't know what's going on. Nobody really talks to you. Someone will just pop in and be like, you need to have this, what's it? It's Pessary, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they was like, yeah, you need to do this. And then they disappear, leave you for hours. You don't know what's going on. I was too scared to move because I thought if I move, then this thing's going to fall out and I'm not going to have a baby. And So I was in hospital and then I think I was contracting. Maybe I just don't like to dilate. Maybe that's my issue. So I was contracting and they sent me up to the delivery suite and I was on the machine. And you could see these contractions, but nothing was happening. It would take you back downstairs and we'll do it again. And I was thinking, oh, great. So I've had all of this excitement. Again, no sleep. Going up onto the labour ward. I had Josh with me and I wanted Kel with me because I thought, I'm not having mum crying in the bathroom again. I need someone that's going to bring humour and distract me from any pain. So this is where Kel come in and she was great. So funny, and she did exactly what I hired her for. So she came in and distracted me. But I went up, and I remember the way that I could help with the pain was by being on all fours, like up against the bed. So I was like leaning up against the top of the bed. But they didn't like me doing that because they couldn't monitor Zach. Because I was induced, I had to then
Be strapped to the monitor.
The whole time. So they kept coming in and being like, no, you need to turn back round. But turning back round, I was uncomfortable. And I was like, this is hurting me. I wasn't dilating. So I think I was I must have been stuck at about 4, was I? There wasn't a lot going on really. I just remember being on the gas and air and I felt like I was on a cloud floating.
So I had my son 5 months before Amy. And I remember I said to her that you sort of like, it's like you're watching yourself, but from above. You can see everything that's going on in the room, but you can't open your eyes. And I said to her, it's like you're floating on a cloud. And the more gas now you're taking, the more you're floating. And I was like, and you sit on top of this cloud and you're sort of looking over and you can see everything.
And you are like watching up.
You're watching from above. And I remember she was on the gas there and I was like, she's going to the cloud, she's going to the cloud, she's going there. And then she hit a point and I was like, she's on top of the cloud right now, I can see it. She's sitting on that cloud, I know it.
Oh, it was great. I do love that stuff. So I was on the gas and air, on the cloud, absolutely loving life. And then I started contracting more, still wasn't dilating. And then, I can't remember a lot of it. But
so it was, she was sort of on her back. And I remember looking over at she was on the fetal monitor and I was looking over at the fetal monitor and I was like, the heart rate keeps dropping. And I said it out loud. I said, his heart rate keeps dropping a little bit, but no one's come in the room yet. How weird. And then all of a sudden, the doors burst open and about 10 people are in the room. And they've sort of lifted Amy off the bed like she was in the scene of The Exorcist. Like they lifted her up, like her whole body, like slammed her back onto the bed. And they were like on the phone and they were like, get her for surgery. The baby's heart rate's lost. And they were like, they were all just screaming. Amy didn't have a clue what was going on. She was still in the cloud at this point, so she didn't know what was going on. I'm in the corner, like, trying not to cry, turning into mum. And then they were like, get her for surgery. They were like about to wheel her bed out of the room. And Josh, bless him, was like, what on earth is happening? And then all of a sudden, there was like, wait. And then they stopped. And then his heart rate was fine. And then Neil just left again. It was really traumatic. They all like rushed in, like they were like literally these double doors burst open and there was 10 people in the room and they lifted her up. I've never seen anything like it. It was horrendous.
So before that, when you were in the room, so there was you,
Amy and Josh.
yeah, just the three of you, no
Mhm.
midwife.
No,
How long was you in the room without a midwife?
probably about an hour, I would say. But it's weird because I was just looking at the fetal monitor and I was like, looking at it like, well, his heart rate keeps dropping, but no one's come in yet. And as soon as I said that out loud, the doors burst open and there was 10 people in there. But they must have been able to see it from the desk.
Well, they do have this centralised monitoring, but the
Mhm.
aim of the centralised monitoring is not so that you can be in a room without a midwife.
Yeah.
The aim of the centralised monitoring is that you still have a midwife with you and that monitoring occurs out there so that senior people are able to ensure that you're receiving the care that you need to be
Yeah.
receiving.
It was definitely long enough because I remember I managed to make everybody laugh by nailing this impression of this advert that I kept doing. And it was really annoying, but it made everybody laugh.
Come on.
And I remember practicing it for ages, and every time I kept doing it, Amy kept laughing. Karen, I've got a cat with no pulse here.
It's when you found the fake boob thing that they have as well.
Tossing it around, yeah.
It was just fun. We were just having fun. So with that happening, was that before or after the one crazy contraction that took me from like nothing to almost 10 centimeters?
It was before that. And then you went from like nothing, because I remember did you have the Pethidine?
Yeah, the one in my leg.
Yeah, so you had the Pethidine shot, and I remember when I had it, it was the same. You had the Pethidine shot, and I said, she's going to fall asleep in a minute, she'll fall asleep. Because it happened to me, they gave her the Pethidine shot, she fell asleep for about 45 minutes, and then she woke up and she was like, I need to push him out now. I'm ready to push.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about Pethidine is it is a really great relaxant. So if you're really tense and you're really struggling with the contractions, I kind of explain it to people saying it's a little bit like when a lot of people go, I don't know, I've never been drunk, but you know, like when you're drunk and you fall over and you know you've hurt yourself, but you can't register it in your brain. It's a bit like that sort of sensation. You know you're having these contractions and you know that they're really uncomfortable and painful, but your brain can't quite register it. So it just kind of goes, oh, it's gone then. And it can leave you a little bit confused. But because it's such a good relaxant, one of the key things in labour to be able to have a baby is being relaxed. So
Yeah.
that's why it is really beneficial if you are really tense. It is a really great medication to have. It's interesting when you have somebody in labour and somebody who was present in the labour, the understanding and the recall of the situation is slightly different. Your clarity on it, Amy, is not as clear as Kel's is. And that's
Didn't know about this being lifted up or any of that
she
stuff.
was honestly like, it's like they each had a corner and they just lifted her up and she was in the air. And then they just put her back down and it was crazy. I've never seen anyone be flipped over so quickly.
So that all resolved. You then have the Pethidine after this exorcist moment.
Yeah, so then from what I remember was I was kind of like having contractions, but then there was that big one that I was like on Josh's hand, like
Yeah.
this massive contraction. And then it just felt like straight after that, there was this whole commotion again. And it's like, right, Amy, you need to push this baby out now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, and there was the guy, Egyptian guy, and he was like trying to force his way in the door, is the way Josh explains it.
Yeah.
He's like trying to force his way in, like, I'm taking her for a cesarean. And the midwives were like, Amy, if you don't push him out now, they're going to take you. And I was like, I don't know what is going on. I was just asleep 5 minutes ago. And then I'm trying to they're trying to get me to push, but I'm still so tired. And I think I was trying to hold my legs and push, and I couldn't do it. They put me on the stirrups, and that was it. I was able to push then. I felt like I just needed somebody to take my legs for me instead of me trying to hold them. And then that came out, and I think that kind of happened quite fast, didn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I think Zach then came out probably too fast. He was still sleepy, so he didn't take the proper breath that he was supposed to take. So he's like on me and he's quite relaxed. And they were just getting ready to send me home. Then they're like, "Oh, we'll get you some toast if you want. We're going to sign the paperwork to send you home." Because I was going to go straight from the labour ward. I didn't need to go downstairs. I was kind of noticed that Zach was a bit of a funky colour, but like, I don't know. So then the midwife was like, "Has baby always been that colour?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I did notice he looked a bit funny." And she was like, "I'm just going to get somebody in to check on him." And I was like, "Okay." So someone else came in to check on Zach. I went for a shower because they were like, "Oh," I said, "Am I all right to go for a shower and like clear myself up a bit?" And they're like, "Yeah, that's fine." I came out of the shower, and obviously when I went in, there was just two people looking at Zach. When I came out, the room is full of people, and they've got him on that bed, and they're using the breathing thing on him. And Josh is like gonna faint in the corner, so he's then been put on the bed. I'm having to feed him sweets, and I'm like, "I've just given birth here, and I'm feeding you sweets because you're about to pass out." And because you'd gone at that point, hadn't you?
Yeah.
Left.
I didn't even get to see what he weighed because I'd gone home.
Yeah, so all of this stuff went on, and they just rushed off with Zach, took him down to the baby unit, and me and Josh had just sat there like, "What the hell has just happened?" Like,
Where's my
I only
toast?
went in for a shower. I never got my toast
Where's my
either.
toast?
And they say that's the best thing after
It
having
is
a baby.
It's incredible. It's cold, but it's amazing. It's like it's been given to you by the gods. It's incredible toast.
The toast gods. Do you know it's the cheapest bread? I think it's something like 12p a loaf.
It's amazing.
I know. It's
I
mad,
never
isn't
got
it?
it.
I might do it again just for the toast.
Well, you've got to have a baby for the right reasons. Do you know what I'm getting? The feeling more than anything was the lack of communication and explanations to you, that they all knew what they were doing because that's their bread and butter or toast. So they all knew what they were doing, but they actually didn't have the foresight or whatever to actually sit and explain to you. Did anybody at any point sit down and go, "Right, Amy, this is what we're worried about"? Because it seems he probably had quite a lot of pethidine still in him, because it sounds like you had the pethidine and an hour later he was out on the bed. So he would have been full whack of pethidine in him. That would have made him a little bit drowsy and a little bit sleepy. And that may then have affected just a positional thing, like there's a big difference if you're drunk and you lie one way, you snore, and if you lie another way, you don't. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And actually, the pethidine would have been in his system and he would have had the same sort of sensation. So just actually a positional thing may have inhibited his circulatory system. But none of that was really explained to you. It's all just drama.
No, I think the most explanation I got was afterwards, and when I was down, and I think I was just talking to somebody down in the special baby unit, and I just asked the questions like, what could have happened, and that was probably when I first got a proper explanation of he was probably just really sleepy and needed a bit of a kickstart to get himself going again.
Bless you as well. That's like not an easy journey to go on. Then went home and you were then abandoned.
Yeah.
So you'd had quite a scary experience where your child's taken into special care. Now they can't be quite happy with him because that's, again, they work with these babies all the time. But to then go, "Oh no, everything's fine, off you go, and we'll see you next year for your next one."
Yeah, it was a bit crazy. I mean, I think luckily I'm quite strong-minded, I'd like to say. So, but I can imagine if it was somebody that wasn't quite as strong-minded as me, it could have all sorts of trauma. Whereas I can laugh about it and we can kind of joke and talk about it now. But yeah, looking back, I think it was just so crazy, and it was quite a traumatic time.
It sounds it. It sounds really. I feel traumatized listening to it. I'm sitting here going, "Oh, I just want to come over there and give you a big hug and go, you dealt with an incredibly massive, scary moment in your life, which is meant to be full of this love and unity and amazingness. And it's like you've had, you quite often use this expression when people get really shocked by stuff that goes on in life, where your eyeballs get pulled to the back of your head and you're like, what? It's like like going on like a roller coaster, isn't it? You know, like
Yeah.
you chugging up, thinking it's all going to be okay, and then you go over that hill and it's just like, what? 900 miles an hour down until you hit the gush at the bottom, and then you're back up on your pathway on the way up again. But yeah, well done for coping with all of that and like managing your life with all of that. It's quite incredible. So, Kel or Carl, whichever you prefer. Carl. So you had not long had a baby then when you helped Amy with hers. Tell me about your amazing birth experience.
So I was induced due to reduced movements at 39 weeks, and he was as stubborn as he is now. I was induced 3 times because he just wasn't coming. He wasn't budging. I remember I was in one of the side rooms. So when you go to be induced, they put you in the side rooms, but I never understood because when you have the baby, you're then on a ward with like 6 other people. And I remember saying to the midwife, could you not use these rooms for the people that have just had a baby? It's a lot more private, it's a lot quieter. And she was like, no, it doesn't work like that. So I sort of had my own little room. I remember the first pessary did nothing. They have to wait 24 hours. And then the second one, I remember they put it in the nighttime. And then I went to the toilet in the morning and it fell out in the toilet. And I remember saying to the midwife, excuse me, my pessary's just fallen out. And she said, I'll give us half an hour, leave it in there, give us half an hour and we'll come and put another one in. And when the midwife come round, she said, just spoke to the doctor, do you mind if we put the pessary back in? I said, like a new one? She was like, no, the same one. I said, but it's been in the toilet for half an hour. And I remembered, no, I don't know what you're thinking, but no, I don't want a pastry that's been sat in the toilet for half an hour. Like, can I just have another one? And they were and ahhing, and they said, oh, okay, we'll give you another one. So I had the third one. And then that finally worked. But I remember I had to go to the labour suite to get my waters broken. That's when I first had that taste of that glorious gas and air. And I remember I felt like there was a helicopter in the room and I could hear this like helicopter above me. And I was like, it's so loud in here. And I remember they burst on waters and then they chucked me outside and was like, go and have a walk around outside, you'll be fine. So I remember I was walking around outside. And then I had to go on a drip because my contractions weren't regular enough. So they put me in a drip. And then they realised that they'd switched it up too much and I was contracting. I think I was having a contraction every like 2 minutes and I was only like 2 centimetres dilated. And they was like, you contracted too much, you're going to have to turn it back down. So you turn it down, which then slowed it down. And I remember I was extremely frustrated with my husband because I was like, I just need some support here. And he had my iPad and he was playing this bus simulator game on my iPad. And I remember I was like, oh, can you come over here? I need some help. And he's like, 1 second, my passengers are waiting. Like, I can't come down. Wait there a second. And I remember I was just like really annoyed with him. And then he went off the ward to go to the toilet because he didn't want to do it in the toilet next to me. So he had to go off and he was gone for an hour. Typical, yeah. And then I remember I got to 8 centimetres and I said to the midwife, I said, I really want the epidural now. I've had enough. I can't do anything. Because again, when you're induced, you have to be strapped to the monitor the whole time. So you can't get up and move around and go on your back. You literally just sat in one position, you can't move. And I remember I said I wanted the epidural and she looked at my husband, she said, can we give you the epidural? And he was like, no. And she was like, okay. He said, no, you're not having it. So that was decided there and then. And I remember I said, well, is there anything else I can have? And she said, Kellyanne, you're at 8 centimetres, you're almost there. You've got 2 more centimetres and then we can start pushing. I said, no, I'm not doing it. I said, give me something else, I'm not doing it. Like I had a choice and I was coming out regardless. But that's when they agreed on the pethidine. And I remember the midwife saying to me and my husband, she said, just so you know, when the baby's born, he will be asleep. It's going to be really scary. He's going to be asleep like this and that. And he was like, okay, it's better than if we'll give it a pethidine. I had the pethidine injection. I fell asleep for an hour. And when I woke up, I remember I looked around because I was only 21. So I was still quite young. I remember I looked at my mum on one side, my husband on the other, and I said, everybody, shut up, leave me alone. I've got to push him out. No one touch me, just leave me alone. I want to do this on my own. And I remember I started pushing at 2 minutes past 2. And I remember just looking around and I said, right, leave me alone now. And I just pushed really silently. And my husband to this day said I didn't make a peep, not even when I was crowning, I didn't make a sound. I just literally just pushed him out. I pushed him out in 20 minutes, but it did result in me having 2 second-degree tears because he just came out too quickly. I'm just a superstar and pushed him out too fast. The midwife, when he was born, I remember I've got a video on my phone and there's like, it's about 2 minutes long. And I remember saying to the midwife, he's not crying. She's like, he's asleep. And they're rubbing him with this towel and he's just full blown dead to the world. He's asleep. And I was worried sick. And she was like, he's fine, he's breathing. He's just asleep. And he was just like flopping around. I said, this is the laziest child ever. Like, how dare he fall asleep now? But he was all good. He was born at 7 and a
With
half.
little bungee cord.
Yeah, he had a really, really tiny. So they said that he wouldn't stretch. Like usually they put them on your chest, but they said his umbilical cord was so short he had only reached my stomach. So I was sort of holding him on my stomach for a while. But they had to try and get blood out of his umbilical cord because I've got a really rare blood type, and they needed to test him to check that he think about whether he had the same blood type as me or a different blood type to me, because then I would have needed another injection or something or another. And I remember them saying that they had to try and squeeze this umbilical cord. It was so thin and so short. And they said that that's probably why I felt reduced movements, because his cord was so short that he couldn't really move around as much. I also had, is it an anterior placenta, where the placenta's like at the front? So that didn't help either. But yeah, he had this tiny little bunch of cord, and I remember them saying that they had to try and squeeze it to get the blood out of it, and they barely managed to get enough to do the test that they needed to do.
Was it not explained to you about the bloods properly, about what was?
I just know, so I'm AB negative. I remember I found out one at one of my first midwife appointments, and she was like, we got your blood results, and I was like, okay. She's like, AB negative, and I was like, okay, I don't know what that means. And she said, oh, it's very, very rare blood type. It just means that you've got to be extra careful. So I remember her saying, like, whenever you have a Nox, your bump, you need an anti-D injection. I ended up having 4. They're the worst things in the universe. They're horrendous. But then she said that your first pregnancy is okay, but any pregnancies after that, you're extremely high risk. But again, they never explained why. They just said you're really high risk because basically your body tries to like attack the baby and kill it, which is really scary.
So I'm A negative. I'm not the B. And although AB negative is a rarer type of blood in this country, it's not in many other countries. So like A is a very Mediterranean blood group. So there's some throwback that goes on within my ancestral belongings somewhere. I've got 5 brothers and none of them are A negative. So there is a throwback going on in there. It was right about the explanation about the pregnancy that you're in doesn't really cause any issues. It is subsequent pregnancies. And what happens if the subsequent pregnancy, if the baby is a positive blood group. So the first pregnancy you have, if that baby is the same blood group as you, then it doesn't cause any problems for the subsequent pregnancy. But if the baby that you're carrying has a different blood group, then you'll build up antibodies. So if you then have another baby that's a positive blood group, your body will see that as a foreign antibody.
Mm-hmm.
And then you tend to have something called blue babies, it was known as historically. There is a blood test now that they do in your pregnancy, and they can test the baby's blood group that you're pregnant with.
So it's weird because I remember when they made all the fuss about testing blood type, but they never actually told me what he was. I remember asking, like, what is he then? And she just said, oh, he's negative. Negative what? Like, that could mean anything. What is
So
it? And she said, he's just negative. Yeah.
You had 4 lots of anti-D, which are quite brutal injections.
They're horrible. You
They
can
are.
actually feel it. The only way I can describe it, you can actually feel it going into your arm. Like, it's the most, it's
you
not
know-
just them.
What upsets me about them doing them in the arm, before we used to do them in the upper outer quadrant of your bottom, so there's a bit more padding there. But because the BMI is raised throughout the UK now, every woman has to have it in the arm.
Yeah.
But if you're not very big, that leaves your arm dead.
Oh, it's awful.
Absolutely dead. So you
Yeah.
can decline, but they don't ever say to women, this is the reason why we want to do it here. We can do it here if you prefer it. And then people
Yeah.
choosing, having a choice. It's
Yeah.
all what's best for the organisation.
Yeah.
So,
I just remember afterwards, it was really like, obviously you've got this baby on you and you're so like, again, like you don't really know what's going on in the room around you because this baby's on you and you have no idea. But I remember I had this big nasty doctor, and it was like 2 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning or something, and he said, "'Cause you've got 2 second-degree tears, I basically lost my labia on both sides. It came completely away." And he said, "Oh, I need to take you down to theatre to stitch you up." And the midwife was like, "Can you not do it here?" And he said, "Oh, I haven't got enough lights. I haven't got enough lights." And I remember he was like, "Go find me a light," to my midwife. And she was like, "Okay, that's rude." Anyway, she went and found him 2 lamps. And I remember they were pricking me with this anaesthetic to numb the area. And he's pricking me like this. And at each prick, I'm jumping and I'm jolting. And I'm like, "Oh, that really hurts." And he's like, "Would you stay still?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's just I've just given birth to a baby and you're pricking me with a needle. Like, what do you want me to do?" And he rolled his eyes at me and he said, "If you move again, I'm taking you to theatre." So big old me, brave old me, I just like grin and bear it, let him prick away and numb it. And then all I could see is him sewn away. And I had no idea what he was doing.
I'm so
Uh,
sorry that happened to you. That's
he
so.
was even so the midwife sort of looked at my mum when he was just being so obnoxious and rude. And the midwife looked at my mum and she was like, "Don't worry about it." But I remember he was just like, "Mrs. Harper, if you move again, I'm taking you to theatre." And I was just like, "Who's shitting your cornflakes? Why are you being so rude to me? I've just had a baby. Be nice to me." And it ended up having, I had stitches on both sides and it was the worst recovery ever. I remember I had this donut pillow, I had to sit on it for a week.
Mm.
But it actually resulted in me, so 2 years later, I ended up having a labiaplasty on the NHS. So I had a designer vagina free of charge. I had it done at Mount Stuart, so I was treated like royalty. It was wonderful.
It's sad that you had to do that, and I'm so sorry that you had to experience that because no woman should be experiencing something like that.
Like, that's what I know nothing else. So, like,
Mm.
for all I know, that was completely normal, but for a first-time mum, the midwife's looking at me and she was like, "Just ignore him, don't listen to him." Like, he was obviously just having a terrible day, but he took it out on me.
Well, do you know what? If I'd have been in the room, I'd have taken it out on him because I'd have taken him outside. I've done that so many times. Like once, this doctor was examining this woman, and he'd got quite big hands, and she swore at him. She basically said, "Get your hands out of my vagina," and he got really offended by it, and he flicked his gloves off and threw them across the room and walked out. So I just sort of said to the woman, "It's all right, I'll sort this out. I'll put your legs down." So I put her legs down. I said, "I'll come back in a little minute and I'll suit you. Don't you worry about it." And I went out and found him and I went, "What do you think you're doing?" "I'm not having anybody speaking to me like that." And I went, "Show me your hands." And he went, "Show me your hands." And he went like this for these. And I said, "If I got one of those hands and shoved it up your ass, what would you say to me?" And I said, "That's exactly what you've just done to that woman. How dare you speak to her like that? How dare you? You can go back
Yeah,
in that room and you can apologise to her now and say you're really sorry. I don't care what excuse you give to her, but you go in and you tell her you're sorry." And he did. He went back in and he said, "I'm really sorry I hurt you. I'm really, really sorry."
that
And
would have
then
been
and then he said to her, "Do you want me to continue suturing you or would you prefer tests?" And she went, "Well, I don't want you anywhere near me. Get out the room." And he left. And then I sutured her. But I wouldn't tolerate anybody doing anything like that to a woman.
yeah,
But, the difficulty when you have like a double labial tear is they are very challenging to suture because of the way that your labia sit afterwards. And then they kind of adhere to each other. And
yeah,
then it becomes really, really uncomfortable to have any intimate kind of stuff
yeah.
afterwards. It can be really, really challenging.
I remember it wasn't until about 2 years later I found a hole and I was like, that doesn't feel right." And I remember I had my smear test and I mentioned it to the nurse and she was like, "I can't see what hole you're referring to." And I had to like look down there and point like that one right there. And then she was like, "Oh no." So she referred me to gynecology. And then gynecology said, "Okay, we're going to put your case forward to a panel because it's cosmetic and it doesn't affect you medically. You have to go to then a panel and they'll have to review it and see if they're going to give you the funding." I said, "Okay." But in order to do that, the nurse had to take photos. And she said, "I'm really sorry, but all of the doctor's cameras are out of use. You're going to have to take them on your phone. I'll take them for you on your phone and you can just email them over to me." And she's got my legs behind my head. She's got me in here, there, and everywhere. I've got my 5-year-old son next to me, bless him, doesn't know what's going on. Mummy, why have you got your phone out taking photos of your bits? Don't worry, son. This is your fault. And I remember was like scrolling through the photos of me, like checking the photos were okay to send. And there's just like 100 photos of my vagina. I'm flicking through. The doctor, like, oh, I don't want to be here. And I remember I had to send them to her an email. And then it went to a panel of people who viewed it and viewed the photos and viewed how it affected me mentally and everything else. And then it got accepted, and I got accepted for a labiaplasty about 6 months after that. So that was great. I got to go private, but I'll never forget the trauma of having to take photos of my vagina on my own phone with my son present.
The whole scenario at that moment would be, I tell you what, we haven't got a camera now. I'll make you another appointment. Do you want to bring somebody along to support you in this moment? It's not very pleasant. And
I work in a very big chain of a very big coffee shop, and I remember the receptionist called me and was like, just checking that you sent the photos over to the doctor. And I was like, yeah, I've sent them over. She's like, Kellyanne, isn't it? Hang on, is this Kellyanne from said store? Yeah, yeah. Hi, it's me. It's Mary. You make my hot chocolate every morning. I'm just looking at your photos now. And she was just a receptionist, and she was flicking through my photos, and I was like, is this nightmare ever going to end? But luckily, it's all good now, and it's all better.
wow. I mean, 3 different birth stories, but within 3 of those birth stories, all I can hear myself saying is, I'm really sorry that you've experienced the things that you've experienced the way that you have. I'm sorry, Amy, that you experienced a birth at the age of 17 feeling like you weren't, I don't know, worthy of having a baby, you didn't know what you were doing, or I'm sorry that when you then got older and you then had another birth experience, that it was handled in a way that was just left in a room or being monitored by a monitor, rather than having that humanistic input that you need in this momentous occasion. And what can I say, Cal? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you experienced what you did, because in many ways there are lots of bits on both of those journeys that are really awesome and fantastic and amazing. The fact that you were both young girls having babies, you got on with it, you produced a miracle, you cooked these babies, you produced a whole organ, you grew these babies, and you managed to birth them, and you've managed to get on with the rest of your life. Those moments could have been completely different, and it's nice that you've put humor into it as a cloak to protect yourselves.
That's just what we do. We tend to cover it up with a bit of humor, and people would probably be like, you're crazy, like that's really traumatizing. We're just like, that was funny.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's really sad, isn't it, that that's the mechanism, the scaffolding that you're having to put in to look for moments of hope, strength, and courage within this experiences that you've both had. It's left me a little bit stumped. It's not very often I don't have much to say, as you know, but I'm quite traumatized by the experiences that you had, because I feel like I know these things go on within the maternity service, and I'm sure at times I may have looked or spoken to somebody, not out of malice or anything like that, but there may have been a bag of stuff that was going on for me. I think I had enough insight and knowledge and awareness to be able to go in and put it right if I'd done something that wasn't quite right. I can remember once a woman coming in to be induced. It was handed over to me. Her waters are broken. She was coming in to have her labour augmented, and that she earlier in the day was 3 or 4 centimetres. And when she came in, she walked in, didn't look like she was contracting or doing a great deal. So I just sat down, just sort of started going through the whole process of her being augmented, which is where they put the drip up and put her on a monitor and all the rest of it. And this look of horror started coming over her face. And I was like, thinking I've completely misread this room completely. So I said, is everything okay? And she went, well, I was hoping to use the birthing pool. I went, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was told that you were coming in to have your labour augmented. I just assumed that that's what you were having. I've completely mispitched this whole information thing for you. She started crying. So I said, I'm really, really sorry. I'm going to leave you and your husband alone for a little bit. I'm going to go and make you a cup of tea. I'll sort out all the pool and everything. But if you want another midwife, then please, absolutely, you can have another midwife, because I don't want you to be with me thinking that I've upset you. And I left, and then he came out and he said, she's fine, but do you mind if she has another midwife? And I went, absolutely not. I wouldn't have offered it because I knew we'd got off on the wrong footing. And that was my fault, because I'd misread a whole situation, and I wanted her to have the best birth experience. I could have probably rectified it and got her in the pool, and we could have had a really lovely thing. But there was also that risk of, because we'd got off on the wrong footing, that would have inhibited her birthing process. Do you know what I mean? She might have had the whole way in the whole of her labour. She's such a bitch. She's a bitch, this woman. Because
Yeah.
I completely mispitched it, you know. But I honoured that. I recognised it. I honoured it, and I rectified it. And I went off and had a word with myself about the whole thing. Listening to your stories makes me feel that that wasn't the case for either of you. That it was almost like they were going through the motions,
Yeah.
but actually that's all it was, going through motions.
Yeah.
You girls produce bloody miracles.
When I look at him and I talk to his dad, I'll say, see his eyelashes? Yeah, I agree with those. See his heart? Yep, I agree with that. You see his hair? Yeah, I did that.
Are you going to have any more?
I don't know. That's sort of, after that traumatic experience, it does put you aback a bit, and it's like, do I really want to do that again? Not sure.
Do you think as well the fear of your blood type
Yeah,
puts you off?
that's definitely a factor, because obviously they never explained it properly to me. So all they said was, if you get pregnant in the future, your body might kill the baby. Just be extra careful. So that didn't help.
In terms of your blood group, as I've said, I've had 5. Nowadays, they can do a blood test when you're pregnant to see if the baby's got the same blood group as you. And if the baby has got the same blood group as you, then you don't need to have any anti-D. But if the baby doesn't have the same blood group as you and you need the anti-D, then they can see if you've developed any antibodies, and they can titrate it. It's a lot cleverer, even in the last sort of 5 years. So don't let that put you off. And if you want to talk through anything more on a more personal level, you can just get in touch with me, and I'm happy to have a discussion with you. And if you then do decide to go ahead and have another baby, I'm happy to support you through that process on a more informative and explanatory way, so that you do actually understand what's going on in your pregnancy.
Tess makes me want to have another baby.
Does she?
Yeah.
Maybe
I,
could
I
talk to
just
you
wanna I just wanna have the pregnancy, and I'd like the newborn baby, but Zach, lovely boy, lovely, but no.
See, I would want to do the whole pregnancy, but then not do the night feeds.
Oh, I didn't have that issue because both of mine slept through.
Mine didn't. And he still doesn't.
I did get told off for that though. I think when I had Caden and he was great, he slept through. Would have his, because I was breastfeeding, and he'd have his feed, and then it was usually about 11 o'clock, and then he'd sleep through till about 5. And I remember I was so proud of myself, and I told the midwife when she come for one of the checks, and I was like, she's like, how is he feeding? I was like, yeah, great, he's sleeping lovely. And she told me off, and she was like, you have to wake him every hour to feed him. And I thought, no, if he was hungry, he would wake. I ain't waking him up. So I was like, yeah, I will. Never. I never woke that child up to feed him, because he woke up when he was hungry, and he's fine, and he's a great kid.
He's 14 now, so he's still here.
Yeah, I did a good job.
Well, you did. And I think also as well, when you're having a health professional telling you off when you're following your natural instincts, that can be quite damaging in itself, because it makes you feel that you're doing something hugely wrong. And when you're a mum, you look at the whole picture, don't you? So you look at how pink they are, how content they are, how often they're feeding, how many nappies they've got. You're looking at a big picture here. You're not looking at one tiny thing and thinking, well, he's not doing this little thing. Sometimes feel that we target into small things and then make them big things. Whereas if we
Yeah.
say to a mum, talk to me, tell me what's going on, how are you feeling? What do you feel is going well? Is there anything you're worried about? Let's talk and explore about what you're worried about, and see what information I have that maybe enhance that for you. But I feel
Yeah.
there's this massive divide, like where power is with the professionals. We
Mm.
know everything.
I feel like they sometimes focus too much on textbook babies and not actually on like a mother's instinct to their baby. And they're like, nope, according to this guide and this guide, they should be following XYZ at this age. When actually every baby learns differently and every baby learns at a different rate. So just because your baby was crawling at 6 months doesn't mean mine has to be. But then they pressure you. I remember when I saw a health visitor when he was about 2, because I was worried because he wasn't eating enough. And I said, I don't think he's eating enough. And I took him to a health visitor appointment, and she put him on the scales and she did his height, and she went, your child has a high BMI. Stop giving him cow's milk. And I said, oh, he only has 1 bottle in the morning, 1 bottle in the evening. I said, full fat cow's milk. I said, it's about the only thing he does consume. And she said, your child is now overweight. Stop giving him milk. And I thought, hang on, I came here because I'm worried he's underweight. And you're shaming me and telling me he's got a high BMI and he's overweight. I don't know what I'm doing here. And she went, is he your first? And I was like, yeah. And she went, like, she was almost like being like, of course, stupid first time mum, like, I'm telling you who's overweight he is. But like, if you used to look at him as a 2-year-old, here's a little stick. He's very tall, but he's a little stick thin boy. And she actually bashed me and said I needed to stop giving him cow's milk. And I thought, I got home and I said, why am I going to take away the only thing that he enjoys? He enjoys a bottle of milk in the morning, a bottle of milk in the evening. It's not hurting him. Why am I going to take that away from him? Because he's got a high BMI and he's overweight. And I remember we made it a joke for a bit, and we used to call him BMI boy.
And then you see Zach, who's just this short, chunky thing.
Yeah, and now
Complete
he's like half my height, and he's a lovely weight. So I don't know, but I feel like they focus so much on the textbook, and your child isn't textbook, your child isn't textbook. But I mean, coming from a person that had a baby 6 months before lockdown, I would say that him not being able to go to baby groups, him not being able to interact with any babies for a further 6 months of his life, he definitely didn't get the head start that most babies would get when they go to like play cafes and play groups and they're allowed to interact. So for me, I was like, you're basing, because he also had he went to speech and language for a little bit when he was 2.5. And I said, you're basing him off a textbook baby. I said, this is a baby that was born in a pandemic. I said, he hasn't had the same social skills as the baby that is in your textbook. Like, he's learning at his own rate, but they just focus so much on that and they can't see that you're right and you're their mother.
I mean, that's a historical thing, I think, that's gone on for a long, long time. I remember my eldest daughter, she walked at 9 months. My eldest son, he didn't walk until I stopped feeding him at 2. And then he got up and walked to the fridge to help himself to milk. And actually, by then I was obviously a lot more experienced. And I was fortunate to have an amazing health visitor who taught me so much about trusting my instincts. And there's so much praise that I got for doing things right. I can remember once I gave Amber a coat hanger to play with. Like, who in their right mind would give a child that's 6 months old sitting on a bed a fucking coat hanger? Me. I did. And it wasn't out of malice or anything like that. It was just I was doing some laundry and she wanted a coat hanger. And I was like, oh, do you want a coat hanger to play with? She nearly gouted her eye out. So I remember ringing my health visitor and crying and going, I've done this and it's so dreadful. I'm such a bad mum. And she came round and you're not a bad mum. Do you know why you're not a bad mum? Because you've learned from that. You've learned, you did something because your baby was looking at what you were doing. She was mimicking you. You thought she'd be mimicking you. And she made it into this completely different scenario. If I had that now, I'd have the safeguarding team in front of me. I would be, the social services would be knocking on my door and they'd be wanting to take my child away from me. Instead of like coming in and exploring the situation, which is what my health visitor did with me, and looking at all the amazing things that I did really, really well as a mum. And they just don't have the time to do that anymore.
Lucky after Caden, being a young mum, I had more of a hands-on health visitor. So she kind of came to see me at the house, so I didn't have to go out to all the to the centres or anything. And she saw me quite a lot, and she was great. I mean, if I saw her on the street now, I'd want to hug her because she was one that said to me, "What do you want to do?" she was like, you can do anything. And I'd always wanted to be an accountant. And she was like, right, let's get onto it. And she contacted the college and got me into accounting. And she was just great. She was a friend. She was there for me. She checked how I was. She'd come on my birthday and on Caden's birthday and would bring us gifts. And it was great. She was amazing. And it was really sad seeing that Kel didn't have that support. And I know it's very different because I looked after more being young, but I think you was just abandoned really after having Rue, weren't you?
That really breaks my heart because it does. I know, as you said earlier, Amy, the NHS service is really stretched.
Yeah.
But I think it's become stretched because there's so much paperwork to prove that what they're doing, rather than doing what they're having to prove what they're doing, they could just get on and do it. A lot of the midwives and a lot of the health visitors that go into work in the morning have gone into that job wanting to do an amazing thing for the people that they go and see, but they end up with the bureaucratic tape and the expectations of ticking boxes that they can't actually do the job in what their heart is wanting them to do. Because it is
Yeah.
a very heart-centered job being a midwife and being a health visitor. And I don't know, I just feel that in the modern world that we're living in it nowadays, that a lot of that care has gone, the essence of what care really means.
Yeah.
And that kind of breaks my heart a little bit. Makes me feel, as you know, I've stepped out of the NHS on that very reason because I couldn't keep fighting in that place anymore. It's driving me crazy,
Yeah, I bet.
you know, and I've seen a big change in how care has been presented to women over my sort of 30 odd years that I've been involved in it. You know, I've seen massive changes. So um, I'm now on this quest for women to get their voices heard, because I do think that the only way we can make the changes now is if you guys, you women, stand up and go, this isn't good enough. This isn't what we want. This might be what
Yeah.
you want to give us, but this isn't what we want. What we want is we want to be loved and respected and honoured for doing the thing that we've done, which is produce a bloody miracle. And we need that respecting and honouring. And so that's why I'm doing this. And I can't thank you guys enough for coming and sharing your stories, although I'm left with a little bit of a sad heart.
So I promised it would be funny.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll have to come do like another episode, make it a little bit more upbeat.
We could invite Mel.
We can invite our mum. She's had 6 children, so she's got a lot of stories. And she gave birth to me all by herself in 15 minutes. No paramedics, no midwives, nothing. She was completely by herself. So that would be a story.
Yeah, my mum did the same with me. Apparently, I fell on the bed. She went to make it, and then I landed on it. My dad went to go and get the midwife and fell in the pub.
Mum, when she was having me, Dad was breathing in her face, like, breathe. And I was being her first. And she told him to fuck off because he was breathing, and he went and got a taxi to go home. And someone was like, what are you doing? She's having the baby. Yeah, she told me to fuck off.
Maybe we can have a baby and you can be our midwife, and then we can do another.
We could do a pregnancy journey.
We could.
Well, couldn't
That'd be
we?
fun.
I have put you down as the summer sisters on this episode, so we could do the summer babies.
Yeah.
That would be amazing, wouldn't it? Did
I'm
you
not
say,
there.
Kel, that you were at present for one of your mum's babies?
Yeah, I was there when my brother was born, the second to youngest when he was born. And I remember I must have been about 5 or 6. And I remember just being like,
6.
was I not?
No. Or maybe actually.
I remember just like crying out. I was in my bedroom on my own and I was crying out, my mum's dying! My mum's gonna die! My mum's dying! I remember I was just absolutely heartbroken because she was just wailing and wailing. I mean, she was only in labour for about 30 seconds, so I don't know how long she must have been wailing for, but she was wailing for a really long time.
Was this Nathan or Connor?
Nathan.
So when the baby was born, what was your thoughts then? Did you see this like little alien land on a bed and go, oh my God?
Luckily, I wasn't there when he actually came out, but I remember Mum saying that she literally had to whip her jeans down and catch him between her legs, else he would have fallen on the floor.
Yeah, she walked from one side of the bed to the other, and as she got to the other side of the bed, he like fell out. But then she had Athena after, because I was there when she had the last one in the hospital. She was induced for Athena, and she was older, so she was seen as a, what is it called?
Geriatric mother.
She was seen as a geriatric mother. So yeah, had the induction. She had to have the drip one. And that was very different considering the others she kind of pushed out with ease. Athena was a different labour, I guess.
Yeah, I was a geriatric mother. I was 45 when I had Rio.
Athena was actually her longest labour, and that was an hour and 19 minutes.
No, it was longer than that.
So Athena was her last, and it was her longest labour. Other than that, she just sneezes and they fall out.
When I had Rio at home, I had him at home. I wouldn't be induced. There's no way I was ever going to be induced. I can't think of anything worse to happen to a woman than to have a labour induced.
I wouldn't recommend it. If anyone ever gets pregnant, I'm like, don't get an epidural and don't get induced. But I'm still suffering now.
I do feel like they're quite pushy nowadays to get you induced. Like, I remember they said to me, if you have more than 3 episodes of reduced movement your whole pregnancy, that's it, you're being induced. So they sort of really, really, really push you towards induction, and you're not really seen as having any other, like, they wouldn't let me go to 40 weeks, and I was like, oh, I've only had 2 episodes of reduced movements, and they was like, yeah, it's enough to meet the criteria, you can come in at 39 weeks. And that was it. Like, I wasn't given a choice to go naturally and see how long I would have gone, because I'm judging by how long it took me. I was in a hospital for 6 days, so 5 days of them were just waiting for him to come out. So bad looks of it, he obviously wasn't ready to come out on his own terms, but they sort of forced him out. But I do feel like it's very much like shoved down your throat nowadays. Like, an induction's the easy way out, but it's actually, I mean, from what I've gathered, an induction of a labour is the worst labour you can have. Like, it's forced, so it's a lot more painful. But that's all I know, so I can't comment on that.
Well, your body's not ready, and actually, there's a whole loads of stuff around fetal movements that you're not educated properly around, and it's become a real focal point for getting women to comply to inductions because of the threats and the fear that they generate in and around fetal movements. But the fact that you have an anterior placenta can make a massive difference to how much movements you feel. Awareness of movements is altered. The other thing that they don't talk about is that obviously your baby growing inside of you knows you from the inside out. So every thought process, every emotion that you have, every conversation that you have with whoever you have it, your baby's sharing that. So it knows when you're in a good mood, it knows when you're in a bad mood, it knows if you're upset. Even if somebody passes a comment and that hangs on you, but you don't do anything with that, your baby will be aware of it. When you are threatened or you're given some element of fear, you release cortisone or adrenaline. And what happens then? Your baby's response to cortisone and adrenaline is an innate animal instinct to remain still, because if they remain still, if you sense danger, they have to remain, because that's a protective factor that goes on for all of you. So effectively your movements will reduce. And of course, they're talking to you about fearful things. You're going to be releasing cortisone and adrenaline, and that's going to inhibit the level of movements that your baby then responds to. And they don't talk about that really innate, basic stuff about what we are as human beings. You've had a couple of episodes of where your baby hasn't moved. Let's talk about when they happened, what happened, how did they happen, what was going on in your world at that moment. They just go, no, let's induce you. It's about protecting the system. It's not really about protecting you. They guise it as protecting you, saying that they're putting that in place to protect you, but it isn't really. I don't believe. That's my little spiel over with. As you know, get on my little soapbox, stand up, my little megaphone.
It just goes down to the whole communication thing as well, that you're not really communicated with properly, that you don't know what's going on, and you trust these people because, we
don't know different.
We don't support people giving birth, so we trust that what we're being told is the right thing. And yeah.
When you look at historically about how the NHS was sort of formulated and how it gained the trust of women, what it did is it said that you haven't got running water and you haven't got great accommodation. So it's not safe for you to have your baby at home. You need to come into hospital and we'll look after you. So when that first started, you've got women that were having 4 or 5 or 6 babies at the time. Well, if they got 10 days in hospital where they were waited upon, of course, going into hospital was a wonderful place to go. A lot of these women hadn't got clean sheets. So I don't know if you've watched Call the Midwife.
Yeah.
But that would give you a bit of a depiction about what it was like. They would be going into these clean sanctuary places where they got food and they got waited upon. Well, of course, they're going to say going into hospital is a great thing. And women got fed this amazing journey about what it would be like. And it's not like that now. You get on that conveyor belt, it's like going to... It's the difference between going shopping at a really expensive designer shop back then to going into Lidl and they've got to get 150 items through in 38 seconds. I want to go back to the old days then. If we're going to do care properly, let's do care properly like that. Or let's allow women to be at home in the safety and comfort of their own home where we go in and we honour their space. Let's not be Lidl's or Aldi and when we're just chucking them along on a conveyor belt because we've got a picking time to get done. That's my final comment, I think, for the evening.
Yeah.
It's been absolutely incredible listening to you guys, your stories and things. I'm going to probably go away and reflect a little bit on that. If there's anything that you want to talk to me about on a more personal level, if you want to go through anything so you gather a bit more understanding about what happened, you can get in touch with me. I do the birth trauma group as well. If you want to come and sit along in that and explore about what went on with your births, feel free to come along on that.
Yeah.
Because it's there for you to support you. Because sometimes when we don't know what's gone on, we can sometimes fill up what we think happened, and actually it can make it a little bit more scary. Whereas if you speak with somebody who can probably comprehend how it really was and how disempowered, but actually see and hear how you girls were disempowered and not heard. And sometimes it enables it to be sort of, rather than joking about it, you're able to kind of process it in a healthier way so that you can kind of go, I wasn't responsible for any of that. That wasn't my fault. It certainly wasn't your fault. Not at all. You were let down massively. Just so you know, you were both let down hugely. And I can only say sorry that happened to you. Thank you. I'm going to stop this now. So
Lovely.